It was a dollar and a dream to make this movie. Everybody kind of did a little bit of everything. So I told Bill I wanted at least the credit as a camera assistant, because that's kind of what I was leaning towards as my way into the film business. You know, in school, you know, what do you want to be? Oh, I want to be a writer and director. Great. What else do you want to do? Because you can get more done if you're on the inside on crew. And if you're in the camera department, you're actually making the movie. My name's Rob Koch. I am a camera assistant currently. Phantom Brother, I was a camera assistant. I was a grip, an electric. I ended up being in the movie, helped build props. We all kind of did a little bit of everything back then for this movie.
All right. And, all right, get the smoke in there. Fine, action.
The way I got involved was I got out of film school in '87. A friend by the name of Bob O'Brien got a job with Bill Zarka, who was an editor at the time, cutting features and a lot of promo work. Bob got a job working with Bill to do a cut of a movie called Hawkins' Breed that Charles B. Pierce directed. They needed at least 2 more assistant editors, and so we go to his apartment. He lived in the Bronx at the time, had a basement apartment, which was also his editing suite. We were cutting 35 millimeter film at the time, so he had editing equipment in his basement, like next to his bed, basically. I had brought along a VHS copy of one of my student films, which was a joke parody coming attraction trailer film for Friday the 13th, Part 39. Showed Bill my project, and he went, oh yeah, well this is basically, oh yeah, you've got this down. You understand how we do trailers. You know, this is hilarious. During that time, as we're getting to know each other, Bill had made South Bronx Heroes. He was part of a movie, I think, called Plutonium Baby. And he was always encouraging to, no, we should make something. And, you know, this was the 80s. Horror and even home video was still a growing thing. So you could go make a horror movie cheap. And so Bill was kind of churning out different ideas based on the stuff that we were cutting. It's like, these guys got a movie made. We can easily go do this.
Now, we got exploitation film, and we're losing the light, so let's do it! Come on! Get the stuff going!
He was talking about, we should make this horror movie. We got to make a movie. And, you know, we'll all do something with it, and then we'll go do your movie, and then we'll find another, and we're going to be a production company, you know. We were going to be the East Coast Zoetrope Films, basically, something to that. And everybody had that same idea and dream at the time. I think Joe Santi was writing copy, you know, for the trailers, like In a World, you know, all that kind of stuff for the trailers for the film market. And Joe was a screenwriter, so Joe wrote this script. It was thick. It was like, 90 pages easily of scripts. And then it was like, all right, how are we going to do this? What equipment can we get? What can we get for free? I mean, it was almost like the Lloyd Kaufman way of doing things. What can we get for free? Where do you get it? And who can we get to do it with us for nothing or next to nothing?
$1.14? $1.14? This isn't even enough to buy a 6-pack, for Christ's sake. Where's the family fortune?
And so when Bill put this thing together, when he got the script from Joe, he knew this guy, David Bronstein, who ran Artel Video. David had a Betacam and, your general videographer kind of stuff. And so Bill was kind of like, well, we can make this thing on Betacam. And nobody did that. Everybody else was at least shooting in 16 millimeter, but even at that time, that was way beyond whatever budget they were going to have, but they had a camera, so let's use this camera. So we're going to go make a movie, no matter what, with a Betacam and use whatever we had access to at the time.
Hey, Pukey, now I want you to, you're hissing a lot, and like, go get your cross up, okay.
We didn't split the department up that you're an electrician and you're a grip. You just did whatever needed to be done. Nora initially was hired to be props, production designer, and she had done that previously on Killer Dead and Spookies. So that was kind of her forte. And, she was also interested in being an actor. So, we find a place to get her in the movie.
I bet you I could kill more than you.
Oh, no, I don't think so. Wait, what about the fat lady? Shouldn't we share some with her?
It wasn't like what I do now, where you have a crew of 75 to 100 and something people running around, everybody doing their thing. This was real independent, everybody pitch in, make this stuff happen. You know, like how we did it in film school. We started out with the best of intentions, again, not organizing or really scheduling, probably at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning the first couple of days, and probably went into the night. There was no hard, fast rules like, well, you have to come back. It's like, all right, let's call it, you know, we'll start tomorrow at this time, give everybody enough time to sleep.
Why do you want to go upstairs?
Because that's usually where the bedrooms are.
Bill was always very enthusiastic, and he was always willing to, well, do you like that? What do you think about that? You know, we would do a take. What do you think? It's like, no, that was pretty good. And he was open to suggestions. You know, he had directed South Bronx, so he had made a movie. He knew how this was done. And as an editor, he knew storytelling through editing, through shots, so he got the shots he needed, but he was also smart enough to know he couldn't overshoot it. Bill was very aware of that kind of stuff. Out of everybody there, he probably had some of the most experience from at least making 2 movies and editing this stuff all these years.
Guys from school would bring their girls up to the house telling them they were coming to look for my dad's hidden treasure.
The haunted house, the Abel Evans house, was in Mamaroneck. Bill knew the owners or the owner's son who had made a movie called Dead Time Story that Bill was an editor on. So Bill was like, hey, could we use your house? And the guy wasn't living there at the time, and he probably hadn't been there in a while. And it was an older house. It was almost like they had abandoned it. It was in disrepair, leaking in certain spots, but like their furniture was still there, and like there was record albums on the wall. It was like if we were in this house, abandoned 10 years later, that's what we found there. So a lot of the set dressing just became whatever you found there. If it was there, hey, let's use it. Let's put this up on the wall. Why not? And then the hillbilly family, the Hickmans, we needed a place for them. And I'm like, oh, well, we should go to my grandparents' house because I had shot my student films there. My grandparents were like, oh, yeah, Robert's going to come and make his movie here. So, we show up, with a van full of junk, and we set up stuff in their kitchen, basically. They had a big kitchen. And again, all the stuff there, it was my grandparents had a garage out in the back. They found old doors, and it's like, all right, let's put the doors up and just put all those cardboard and just make the corner of the dining room look real hillbilly-ish, because that's why you only see it from those corners. So, we shot all that stuff there probably for a day because we needed to go someplace. And my grandparents were like, oh, yeah, sure, Rob and his friends are going to come and make a movie. And then about a year later, hey, can we come make a movie here? And my grandma's like, yeah, sure, fine. But now I bring a film crew for a movie called Frankenhooker, and now we've got like 60 people in a semi, and my grandparents are like, wait, this isn't what we expected. And we're using their kitchen and their backyard all over again for a much bigger movie.
Baby, this is the house where I'm going to make you a star.
I'll do almost anything for a laugh. I mean, to say that I'm an actor puts like people like John and every actor I've ever worked with, it's like, no, these guys have a craft. Everybody thinks they can do what I can do. Everybody thinks they can be an actor. Everybody thinks they can do it. But until you actually have to get in there and do it, that changes everything. And I was always sort of a shy kid and a behind the camera guy anyway. But I did like making people laugh. And so I was definitely in my friends' student films. I was in my own student films because, again, necessity, you got to put somebody in there. The only reason I'm in Phantom Brother is we don't have the time, the money, or the people to do this stuff. So initially, we were going to do a music video, if I remember correctly. And, these guys were going to come use this haunted house thing as a location. It's going to be a rock band, and melee would ensue, and people would be butchered all over the room for some heavy metal score. So it comes down to, I think it was the last day of shooting, and Bill's like, well, what are we going to do? I says, well, why don't we, it's a bunch of film people coming to this house to make some dopey movie. And then it's like, well, who's going to be in this thing? And my buddy Matt Crisfield, who was an actor in high school, comes in and plays a small part. Both my sisters, their best friend, another friend from film school, Arnold Gargiula, who's doing the makeup effects. My parents' best friend's kids, like, hey, you guys, come down and be in this movie today. And it kind of fell into that. But again, Matt and I are reading the lines, and we kind of knew what we wanted to do. But, we had to kind of respect Joe. It's like, well, Joe's got to write it and stuff. But then we're like, well, this isn't what we want to do. And Bill's like, well, what do you guys want to do? And it turns into, well, I just want to do De Niro lines because it's funny. Lines from The Untouchables.
You can take my share of the profits and stuff it up your ass. Thanks for seeing it my way, Joe. Son of a bitch, right here. He insulted me in front of my girlfriend. I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want him to burn his house down there. I want to go in the middle of the night, piss on his ashes. Bill wanted it to be funny because this wasn't a serious horror movie. So Matt and I are like, well, what's the craziest stuff we can come up with? And like, what's the name of this thing going to be? Vampire on Valium on Valentine's Day. I don't remember who came up with that title. I know I can take credit for their character names of Count Cocula and Pukey, because a guy I went to film school with, Will Weiss, and I think he was joking about breakfast cereal, and he said Count Cocula, and I just remembered that stupid name, and it says, yeah, that's coming out.
Ah, left we meet again, Count Cocula and Pukey.
Yes, well, we have you now.
And so, again, we just made up the most ridiculous scenes, and just Matt was like, no, you can't do that. We're getting rid of this, too, and, it plays out as it does on screen just for laughs. We did the clown car bit, and just everybody that was there got out of the car. You don't see the crew after that because, everybody had to go home because, they probably had to go to school the next day or something as we're shooting all night long. So then it just became us core crew people there filming the rest of that stuff.
God, boy, what the hell is this contraption?
Steadicam on this movie, Jim McConkey, his brother is Larry. They are the McConkey brothers. They are like your name brand Steadicam operators, especially here in New York. Larry has worked with everybody, and his shots. He did the Goodfellas Copacabana shot, and he also did the opening scene of Bonfire of the Vanities. A lot of those oneers are Larry. Larry, he didn't invent it, but he took it to that next level. His brother Jim was still coming up behind him. I forget their age difference. But Jimmy didn't even own a rig at that point. Now, this is 1988. It was an expensive then and expensive now piece of equipment. I mean, you're talking six figures just to walk out the door with a functional rig. You could go to a place called Camera Mart, which was a film equipment rental house, and they had this thing called the Steadicam with a very rudimentary video viewfinder, because video was not a thing like it is today at all. That's a whole other animal they had to attach to a film camera. Larry told me that they would let you strap the thing on, they'd give you a camera to put on it so you'd have all the weight, and you would walk around their shop, and as long as you weren't falling over with the thing, it's like, okay, you've pretty much got it. All right, so you can rent the thing and take this thing out. And it was kind of like learn as you go. I mean, at the time, now you can go to Steadicam operator workshops, and guys like Larry teach you everything they've ever known of how to do something. So Jimmy was still at that stage of he was still learning. So we had to rent the rig for him from Camera Mart. He had to borrow a wireless follow focus thing called a Sights system, which is basically almost a homemade follow focus wireless system to be able to control the focus on the lens. And you can't, with a Steadicam, have a cable off. I mean, people have tried it, but operators don't want cables getting into the way of their rig because that's how this thing balances and floats. So Jimmy borrowed that focus stuff from his brother. We rented the rig, put the camera on it, whether it would be upside down for low mode or standard mode. And Jim was, again, he was getting stuff for his reel at the time. Like, this was 88, so Goodfellas was shot in 89. So think of it, a year later, his brother is doing that famous shot for Goodfellas through the Copacabana with a very similar rig.
Every day I follow that son of a bitch up the hill, watch him go into the house. Watch him come out of the house an hour later. Watch him go down the hill. It's like a goddamn rerun.
That is your job in this family.
I think homemade type of batteries. I mean, everything was custom made to make this thing work, as opposed to what we have now where The rigs themselves are still very similar, but the electronics are completely different. The batteries, you can just use regular camera batteries and slap them on there to run the thing. So again, it was very primitive stuff, but they were making major motion pictures with this rig at the time. You know, after watching the movie, it's like, wow, we had a lot more Steadicam going on there than I thought. And yeah, movies aren't made in order, but say we had them for 3 days, maybe 4 days, not all in a row.
Hey, you know, I just had an idea. I bet you that goddamn guy found money and he took off.
My job now is sort of the same job that I had on Phantom Brother. I'm an assistant cameraman, and the camera department almost sounds like a joke. How many people does it take to screw in a light bulb? Camera department is usually consisted of a loader, a second assistant, a first assistant, an operator, and the director of photography. That's one part of the entire department. The first assistant mans the camera as far as putting the lens on that camera, at the time putting the film on it, cleaning it, maintenance. And the key thing, we're focus pullers. We keep things in focus. Europeans always just called them focus pullers. For whatever reason, in the States, we were first assistants. I tell people now I'm a focus puller, and they still kind of have no idea what I do because it's all sleight of hand. You don't know what I've done unless I do it wrong.
What do you think? I sleep through class like some people? I paid very close attention, especially to that part.
On Phantom Brother, I wanted at least the credit as a camera assistant because that's kind of what I was leaning towards as my way into the film business. And I was always a gearhead, so my favorite camera in the world was a Panaflex. My favorite part was threading up that mechanism and all that movement in there and putting film into it. In Betacam world, I mean, you drop the tape in, and it was basically like a news camera. Had the zoom built in, we had one lens. We weren't really focus pulling on that movie because David didn't even have the accessories except if you grab the lens and you physically focus it, which is what you're doing. But on a more modern camera that's set up for it, you actually have a knob and there's marks and there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on. So I still would set the camera up for David, charge the batteries, kind of tend to that. And then he would also be telling us, oh, put that light there, put that one there, put CTB on that one, hide the cables. We were the crew, so we all did sort of all the jobs.
All right, boys, set them up, move them out.
A set in a movie now or TV show in some ways is still like summer camp, only very professional because we are professionals. But it's like you go do this thing for 30 days or 30 weeks or whatever it is, and then you split up. We'll see you on the next one, and you're gone. Some of it's the same. Some of it, it's just price of the toys has gone up and the things that you have to play with. Instead of just an early Steadicam, now we've got gimbals coming off of cranes going onto Steadicam type rigs and then running down a street as opposed to the Steadicam guy running down the street.
Well, to get here, you had to go there first, all right?
Oh, okay.
Once upon a time, a camera weighed maybe 75 to 100 pounds, and it was this big beast that you either had to put on a dolly and move it around, and you set your shots, and the moving camera had to be either on a giant crane that would not fit in this room or a dolly. Now you get a camera the size of these Blackmagic cameras, and you can pick the thing up and move it just around anywhere. So you're a lot more free to do stuff. Everything was by sight. Basically I used to have to use tape measure and a force to keep somebody in focus. I know that you're about 7 feet from me right now because I've been doing it for that long. Now another cameraman started calling us drone pilots because sometimes you're not even in the room. It's like, yeah, I'll be down the hall on my 13-inch monitor with all my special things and my remote control focus. But it's instant gratification though. I mean, before you would be doing film and you'd be sweating waiting for Dale. It's like, well, did I get that one little part? Did I catch that lean? And watching older movies, there's what was always called an acceptable amount of out of focus, a buzz on a quick move. The worst thing you can do to a focus puller is this, because that's the lean. And if you're on a tight lens, you're going closer, far away, and it's always about the eyes keeping sharp, and both of them if you can. Back then, it was all very regimented, I'd have the actor, how far are you going to lean? You going to go about there? Okay, good. And I'd know, here's that, here's that. But now everything can move around, but because you can physically see what you're going to get, you can kind of freeform it. And the gear now has changed that I used to like to be next to the camera all the time because that's how I did it. Now I'm still in the room when I can be, watching the physical space between an actor and a camera, but I also have a little monitor or a bigger monitor to double check myself. And the technology has allowed us to do stuff a lot easier. When Jimmy McConkey does Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and they're doing these crazy oneers, that show's all about the oneer, going on cranes, off cranes, around, through, this, that, and the other thing. And you can do those and set those up a lot quicker, knowing that you have instant gratification, that you can see, did we get it or not, as opposed to, oh, I hope we got it. And the focus pullers can now move around with a little monitor on your remote control handset to kind of peek at. And the good ones will either still know what 7 feet looks like and have the monitor to check. And if somebody zigs when they should have zagged, you got to be able to know how to react to that instantaneously.
This is my specialty. I've done this type of thing before.
For years, I talked to other focus pullers, and they talk about actors, and we joked about actors like couldn't hit a mark if you put their name on it. Pacino, they said, could defy gravity by hitting a mark and then leaning way over it, as opposed to being straight up and down. So I did a movie David Mamet wrote and directed called Phil Spector. So we're doing a mock courtroom scene with Al, because he's going to go on trial for this murder. So we're shooting the thing, and we were doing dolly stuff. And then Juan wanted to do a take where when Al's going to explode, basically, and get off the stand and start raving, he's going to do it handheld. So it's like, all right, use the force, kid. And, I got remote and watching everything. And Al gets up, and it's like the full Pacino. It's like Glengarry Glen Ross. It is You're Out of Order. It's Scarface. And I'm sitting there going, holy shit, he's really doing this. And he's dancing around, and Juan is just effortlessly moving for him. You have to get to this person, go back to Al, around here, this. And he does the take, calls cut. So everybody's like, okay, we're good. They go in the back, and then Al comes out from back where Video Village was, and he comes up and he's talking to David. He's like, David, so I think I want to try this on the next one, this, that. And when Helen comes over here, I may get up sooner, and Juan, I may do this. Hey, kid, that was a nice job on the focus over there. That was some hard stuff. I'm like, holy shit. He went back and he watched dailies from the playback guy. But, I mean, that's focus pulling right there. And again, with the technology, it's gotten easier to know that you're right because of instant gratification, but there's still parts of that they still make it harder, because now we want you to do the crazy stuff because you can actually see it when it's happening. So I remember buying a VHS copy that now sells on eBay for $260, and I have no idea where my copy is. Bill had given me like some selects of like my scenes cut together and stuff, but I don't think I saw the entire movie until the VHS. And then I want to say in the last 5 or 6 years, John or somebody says, it's on YouTube. And sure enough, it was sitting on YouTube. And it, again, a real crappy, up-resed version of the VHS was on YouTube.
I'll just take that. You won't be tempted again.
Probably 2003, so almost 20 years ago was the first time I'd ever seen the entire thing. I still laugh that we were way ahead of the curve shooting on Betacam way back when. And it's kind of funny watching that movie now. If it was actually shot on film or even early digital HD, it would have definitely had a different look that I think would have given it just a little bit more of an edge for, not respectability, I don't know what the right word is, but more legitimacy. Like it wasn't just a home movie, like a found footage thing of some, Blair Witch project that they shot Super 16 in high 8. If Phantom Brother could have been done on more current digital stuff, it would have definitely had a more professional look to it as opposed to that video look. But I mean, I think that's part of its charm too, is, being on video at the time and currently.
Think back to that day.
It's Hackers, it's Frankenhooker, it's Sling Blade that people will ask me about. Phantom Brother, it's like within the group, it'll come up somehow. But I was on set with Jimmy McConkey one time, and we were doing, whatever, and he goes, Phantom Brother. And I'm like, who knew?